All of the van trailer kits readily available in 1/24th and 1/25th scale, including the Moebius model's 53-footers, feature round corners on the front ends of the van body. This picture of a real 53-foot Great Dane, which is a very close match to the kit, has the rounded corners. And this one has a polished front end, very similar to the chrome-plated part provided in the kit. The only inaccuracy on the kit part is a lack of rivet detail. Some van trailers, like the 48-foot Strick that I'm modeling to complete this rig, have 45-degree angled corners instead of rounded ones. In this picture of a similar trailer, the 45-degree angled corners are much more noticeable. Also visible in this picture are the recessed locations for the glad hands and Waybill box to protect them from damage in intermodal service. I found the most straightforward approach to this project was to assemble the basic box with sides cut down to required length and leaving the floor and roof sections full length. 45-degree lines are marked at what would become the new front corners of the van body. A razor saw was used to cut partway through the roof section on both angled corners. Then the excess material was trimmed off using a hobby knife. It was easy to draw layout lines on the flat surface of the roof. On the floor, I had better results clamping a square in place and using this as a cutting guide. 1/25th scale is large enough that basic carpenter tools actually work quite well. Ribs on the inner surface of roof and floor were trimmed back to create a smooth surface, so the piece of 1/8 inch square styrene strip could be glued in place to serve as a support for the new front wall of the trailer. This is being made using 80 thou thick styrene strip, so a vernier caliper depth gauge was used to set the correct measurement. The two recessed areas, one for the glad hands and the other for the Waybill box, were laid out using pencil. Then 0.32 diameter holes were drilled around the perimeter of each open area using a Dremel drill press. These drilled holes create a rough outline of the opening, and then it's just a matter of connecting the dots with a hobby knife and a miniature saw blade to create the desired opening. Any minor inaccuracies will be hidden by the trim used around the edges of the opening. For the smaller one on the right side of the trailer for the Waybill box, I use 100 thou styrene angle. These were glued in place, leaving excess length on the outside corners. And these were trimmed off after the glue had set. Any gaps in the corners were filled with small pieces of styrene rod, and a piece of styrene sheet was glued in place to close off the back of the opening. The Waybill box itself is represented by a piece of 1/25 thou thick by 250 wide styrene strip, cut to the appropriate length, and the corners rounded off. Final sanding of the trim angles and gluing in place of the Waybill box completes this first opening. The second opening, for the glad hands, will be deeper, so for this, I'm using 1/4 inch styrene angle, with one leg cut down to create an unequal length angle. Brass strip, held in place by magnets on a piece of 1/8 inch steel plate, is a handy cutting guide to do this operation. The air glad hands are very nicely done resin detail parts from Canadian manufacturer Plaskit. To prepare them for use, I trim off the excess material, shown in red, and drill out one side for 20 thou wire air hoses. Other side of the glad hand gets excess material trimmed off as well, and it's drilled out for an 0.32 diameter brass wire mounting pin to attach it to the trailer. Here the two glad hands are prepared for installation, with the 0.32 brass wire mounting pins clearly visible. The electrical connector is another resin detail part from Plaskit, and this is drilled out 0.32 diameter all the way through to provide location for a mounting pin and also for attachment of the electrical cable coming from the tractor. With both recessed areas completed, the front of the trailer can now be installed into the main van body. Now the two open areas on the front corners of the trailer can be dealt with. To fill these in, I use 3/16" square styrene strip glued into place. And this tool, set at 45 degrees, was used to ensure the proper angle of this corner piece. Maintaining the proper 45-degree angle is what's important. The gaps on either side of the styrene strip will be covered over in a later step. When filing the roof section, my angle is a little bit off of 45 degrees, as can be seen here, comparing the roof cut to the proper 45-degree angle of the square styrene corner reinforcement. This was easily corrected by gluing styrene strip into the corner, leaving it oversize, then trimming it down and doing final sanding to match the 45-degree angle of the trailer corner. Trimming the 53-foot long floor section down to 48 feet results in losing the detail molded in around the kingpin area. To restore this detail, start by gluing in a piece of 80 thou thick styrene sheet in front of the first floor rib to fill in this area. Using the front section of floor that was removed as a guide, the kingpin plate was cut from 20 thou thick styrene sheet, and a series of holes was laid out using the pencil line seen here. Oval slots along the front of the trailer were made by drilling holes progressively larger, up to 1/8 of an inch, then cutting out the excess material and filing smooth. The other holes were drilled out round initially, and then final shaping was done with a square file. To close up the gaps in the front corners of the trailer, I chose to use thin shim brass, bent to fit, in a manner very similar to how real trailers are constructed, with aluminum sheet riveted to overtop of supporting framework. I used K&S brass sheet, 3/1000 of an inch thick, which is easy to cut and work with, and is also very close to scale thickness. The work surface is the same 1/8 inch steel plate seen earlier, and the first step is to use a piece of styrene strip to locate the straight edge to make the first angled bend. With the straight edge in place, both the square and the styrene strip are removed, and a single edge razor blade is used to start the bend, lifting the edge of the brass sheet up just enough to allow a more substantial tool, in this case a small X-Acto 45-degree square, to be brought into place to complete the bend. A strip 5/16 of an inch wide was cut from 80 thou thick styrene sheet and used to locate the straight edge for the second bend. The straight edge is held in place with magnets, and the second bend is made, again using the 45-degree X-Acto square as a forming tool. Using the 3/16 inch square styrene strip from the first step, the straight edge is relocated again, only this time, instead of a bend, multiple light passes are made with a hobby knife to cut the finished corner piece free from the rest of the brass sheet. Here's the finished corner piece, cut away from the rest of the brass sheet, and ready for installation on the trailer. It's been trimmed to the right length to fit in between the styrene rub rails top and bottom. Medium viscosity gap-filling CA glue was applied to the corner of the trailer along the face of the 3/16 square styrene strip. Set the formed brass corner piece in place and hold until the glue sets. This is actually a much easier way of dealing with the gaps on the corners than conventional approach of filling, puttying and sanding. The only thing left to do now is add fasteners, which are represented using Micromark O-scale rivet decals. Although these aren't an exact match for the molded-in rivets in the Moebius kit, they blend in well and are quite convincing once a coat of primer is applied. This completes construction of the basic van body. Now it'll be on to the landing gear and suspension. Thanks for watching this how-to. It's an approach that you can use if the trailer that you're modeling has angled corners rather than the round ones provided by the kit manufacturers.